Hello, I am Jack Rickard. This is Electric Vehicle Television. It's true we were missing in action last week, and the reason is my number 2 daughter, Jennifer, graduated from Southeast Missouri University last Saturday. Saturdays are when I edit mostly. And shoot some. She graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in anthropology and maritime archaeology with a minor in mass communications. She's learning to do video like her dad. And she's 30, has a 12-year-old son, and we're quite proud of her. So we spent the day going to the university and getting her graduated. My wife is on the faculty up there, so she appeared in her gown and stole and so forth. And it was the largest graduation they've ever had at Southeast. 1,400 students graduated last Saturday. And so we're enormously proud of Jennifer, who you have seen here on EVTV before as a contributor. And we took last week off. We're going to take next week off for a kind of a family reunion of the siblings of my clan down in Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, where there promises to be much beer and golf and boating, as I understand it. And we're all getting together with our kids and our kids' kids and all 5 of the original siblings in my clan. So there very likely will be no video next week. But I did want to work one in this week, as today, May 22nd, is the anniversary, actually, of our first video done in 2009. Let's take a look at a brief clip from that and see if you can recognize any of those thin people. That's about it for our joyride in the 1957 Porsche Speedster, now in electric version. I thought it was important to show you a little bit about how the car actually drives and what it's like to live with, and to talk a little bit about some of the issues surrounding electric cars. It's timely, apparently. Today, Barack Obama has asked on television for each American family to change one light bulb from incandescent to fluorescent. And I know you're all cheering about that. I'm not. My father installed fluorescent lights in our home in 1959. This is 2009. This is a Fire Sword flashlight. It uses the latest Cree MCE LED. It was made by a guy in his garage up in Oregon. Thanks, Wayne Johnson. Good work, by the way. It's a work of art. This thing puts out 3,000 lumens. These LEDs will last for 50,000 hours. And it's about 1/3 more efficient than a fluorescent light bulb. In the lab, they're already demonstrating about 160 lumens per watt, which is twice what this flashlight will put out. If you want to change a light bulb, change it the right way. In the meantime, there's a lot more at stake here than I think some of these people quite get. We're shoveling boatloads of money overseas right now to people who really don't like us, and we could be facing some climatic changes that'll make life very uncomfortable for a lot of people, and I'm not talking about our grandchildren. I happen to know There's a couple of 100,000 Wayne Johnsons out there with garages that can make flashlights. And there's a couple 100,000 Jack Rickards out there with garages that can make electric cars. I'm not going to ask you to change a light bulb. I want you to go change the world. And the difference between me and Barack Obama is I already know you can do it. I'm Jack Rickard. Till next time, stay on the road. That's where we started, and very little has changed, and a lot has changed at the same time. In news this week, we've got a couple of things. The MF Ampere has entered service in Norway. This was a joint project of Feldstrand and Siemens to build an all-electric ferry capable of carrying 120 vehicles and, 360-something people. It's 80 meters long and 20 meters wide, and it's entirely powered by lithium-ion batteries. It has two 450-kilowatt motors on it and a 10-ton lithium battery, which I would dare say is the largest lithium battery in any vehicle in the world. And it takes about 20 minutes and 150 kilowatt hours to go across the little fjord that they cross there. They do that crossing 34 times a day. Now, how do they do that? They have two other battery packs, one on each end, fed by solar and grid and so forth. And so you talk about fast charging, they pull in and hook into the battery pack on the shore and take on electricity and then turn around and go for another 20-minute shot back across. They do this 34 times a day. They say that it saves at least 1 million liters of diesel fuel a year. But a 10-ton lithium-ion cell. Man, we could get some range out of that. Tesla, of course, we normally start out with. And this week, there appeared on YouTube a drone flyover of the Gigafactory. We're going to play this. This was shot by Emery Peterson. It was his first video, and he shot this with a DJI Phantom 3 quadrocopter, which is exactly what we use to shoot our intro. And he did that. Now, the part you see here that is under construction is Elon Musk was quick to point out on Twitter that that's the pilot, about a quarter of the eventual thing. And I'm going to put up a photo here where you can see the size of the battery plant, and the square there is the part that Mr. Peterson shot. The factory is going to be 10 million square feet, and it will ostensibly, in full production, it will double the world's capacity of lithium-ion cells. That brings up some point, and I hope that this comes to pass. They're going to strive mightily to prevent it. But if Tesla is doing a gigafactory to double the amount of lithium-ion cells, right now LG Chem is making a big move, and quite successfully, to be the battery supplier to the OEM manufacturers. And they have signed up BMW, and they have signed up Volkswagen, and they have signed up General Motors, and I think they're doing Ford. And they're just going across the land to the point that Renault is now using LG Chem, while Nissan has this monstrous battery factory in New Smyrna, Tennessee, that is supposedly capable of making batteries for 150,000 Nissan Leafs a year, but they actually they wind up being more expensive to produce than they could get them from LG Chem. LG Chem's working on secret sauce in the nickel, manganese, cobalt oxide realm, NMC cells, that they think is going to dramatically advance the range capacity of these cars. And that's the whole story on the Chevy Bolt getting 200 miles. While I was looking at this, Emery Peterson posted this to the Quick Laptop Cache account on YouTube. And that's because the only YouTube account he had was for his company. Now, what is Quick Laptop Cache, I had to ask. And so I got on their website and started prowling around. And what I found was basically a fencing operation for stolen laptops. That's all it could possibly be. Of course, they purport to be buying used laptops, and just laptops people don't want anymore. Laptop computers are very preferable items. What I did was enter a couple of Mac Pro laptop models that I had found basically ran on eBay from $600 to $2,500 used. And I was offered the startling sum of $175 for one or $125 for the other. So it's almost an order of magnitude too low a price that they're offering for the laptops. But they will pay in 24 hours and no questions asked. If they send you a box and you send them the laptop, and they can pay you by PayPal or send you a check for a relatively trivial amount. So they're buying laptops very cheaply, and I think we all know why. No one who actually owned a Apple Mac Pro laptop would sell it for $125 or $175, no matter how badly you needed the money, or no matter how badly you didn't need the laptop. They're simply worth a lot more money in the used market, and there's a readily tradable market for them on eBay. But this, you can turn a laptop into cash very quickly and at arm's length over the internet. And so Emery Peterson is buying a lot of laptops very inexpensively, but they're probably all stolen, I would imagine. That's just my take on it. Could be perfectly legitimate. Maybe everybody gets tired of their Mac laptops and sells them for $125. I may be the only one that likes them. The Leaf off lease. The other thing that is apparently very preferable are Nissan Leafs. And the EVTV hack team is actually simply on a buying spree. Let's see. I found a Ford dealer with a Azure Dynamics eTransit Connect that's apparently not operational and is brand new, and they don't know what to do with it, and I made them an offer on it, and I mentioned that to some of the guys in the EVTV hack team, Ask Clowns, kind of a mailing list we have. And Byron immediately asked me, was it this Ford dealer here? And I said, no, it isn't. He said, well, they got one over here too. And within 6 hours, he was back to announce he had purchased one for next to nothing. And, of course, if you recall, Byron's a pretty good guy to have around if you have a E-Transit Connect that doesn't work. And you all know how I know. Me and Mark came down and fixed mine. So that should be rolling pretty soon. Christopher Brand, again in the hack mailing list, had gotten to the end of his 39-month lease. And Nissan was paying a $5,000 bounty, basically buying down the residual value, and made him an offer he just couldn't refuse. He could keep the car. This is a 39-month-old car that has been his for $11,500. Damian McGuire then announced that he's buying a Leaf to do some can capture and to get the parts off of it for the Panzer. He got it for $7,000 or $8,000. Today, Mark Weisheimer has informed me that he has bought one for his wife that's here in Missouri, actually, for $13,500, a little bit more money, very low miles, a very tricked out, upscale, fully loaded Nissan Leaf. And he's going to be having, he said, I've bought cars for my kids knowing they were going to wreck them and spent more money than this on the Nissan Leaf. We're seeing eBay wrecks of Leafs for $6,500. I found a Nissan Leaf SLs, the upscale model, in Houston, Texas this morning on eBay for $10,495 each. What's going on? This is a disaster, by the way, for electric cars. I mentioned this the last episode. It's gotten worse. It's going into full flower. It's going to get worse yet. But this is a total disaster for the future of electric cars from original equipment manufacturers, and has the potential to actually kill it. It could be the end of the electric car again. Who killed the electric car? And that is simply an unbelievable depreciation. And we all know, or should have known from the beginning, where this comes from. We all know about batteries. We've had batteries in our cell phones. We've had batteries in our flashlights. We've had batteries in our cars. The 12-volt lead-acid starter lights ignition battery that you have to replace every 2 years, and it's junk. And, of course, the delight of turning the key to a dead car. And we all know that the batteries wear out and that they... and so if you bought a car new that had new batteries, that might be very nice. But when it becomes a used car, then it has used batteries, and that's going to be a problem. You'll buy the used car and then be hit by the big battery bill when you have to replace the batteries. Interestingly enough, this is true. In the case of these lithium batteries, and even the chemistries that I do not prefer, but they are still good batteries, the manganese spinel battery in the Nissan Leaf and the similar battery in the Chevy Volt and so forth, are proving remarkably durable. They're not wearing out. And these cars that probably had an EPA range of 76 miles, coming off a 3-year lease, might be doing 65 or 70 miles. And we all know that the mileage you get is so variable, depending on how you drive and where you drive, that that's almost nonsense. I have a deep fear of a very bad time for electric cars headed our way that could actually kill it. And if the American public and the public worldwide comes to the realization that if they buy an electric car, it'll be worth less than a third of what it was purchased for in 3 years, that's double the depreciation of a similar gasoline-powered car, and by itself becomes reason enough not to buy one at all. Now, save it. I don't want to hear it. All the four-function calculator analysis from the analysts among you about all the gasoline you saved in the 3 years, and about the all the good it's done for the planet, etc. It doesn't matter. If I buy a car for $40,000 and it's worth 10 3 years later, I don't want the car. That's it. What we're talking about is I bought a Tesla Model S for $107,000 that'll be worth $25,000 to $30,000 in another year. That's a horror. And it's, but it appears to be what's happening. This is going to get worse. The Leafs were out for $10,500, $11,500 all over eBay. We're just getting the first wave of them coming off lease, but they're introducing a new model, probably with greater range. Similarly, this Chevy Volt has been having some great lease deals for several years, and they're about to introduce a new version, probably with a 60-mile range instead of a 35, and some other enhancements that'll make it a much improved car. I've said all along the way to buy these new cars is to lease them. Of course, I didn't. I bought it instead of leasing it from Tesla and taking advantage of Elon's guaranteed depreciation, trade-in value. Instead, I had to buy it because that's how we run around here. Should have leased it. The guys that are leasing are getting a great deal, and they can roll that right into a new Leaf with better range or a new Volt with more range and more features. But in the meanwhile, the ones coming off lease, it's a mess. As I said, Nissan was knocking $5,000 off the residual value, really $6,500, giving $1,500 of it to the dealer, who was supposed to pass it on but could elect to keep it. Most of them are just electing to keep it. Meanwhile, I've got Ford dealers all over the country who have over $50,000 in brand new E-Transit Connects that have never been sold, are mostly now non-operational. They cannot figure out how to charge them. And how are they going to sell these E-Transit Connects? They're brand new vehicles from Ford. They're a Ford dealer, and they can't fix them. And where's the guy going to take it to get worked on? I actually saw one of them advertising it with a 2-year warranty or something, that there's no one there to fulfill the warranty. And so that's kind of a mess. And so we see, to some degree, this electric vehicle, new car market dissolving in front of us to some degree. And I think this used electric car thing is going to be a mess. A mess for some, not for others. We're going to be buying, not selling. And this is like a dream come true. You can pick up a virtually unscarred brand new car, 3 years old, but with the modern conveniences, Bluetooth and the radio and the electric seats and so forth, for $11,000, for $10,000. Where's it going to go? I would expect, as the Leaf introduces the new model, that you could get one of these cars here with less than 50,000 miles. In the $7,500 range. That is the bargain of the century. That's the other end of this, is for those of you at the bottom of the ladder that have been waiting for the affordable electric car, guess what? It is arriving in the thousands and tens of thousands. And most of the population views these as white elephants. Again, they have a point. We did a story recently about a young man who bought a used Toyota Camry hybrid, and it had a light on the dash. That's all he needed to take care of, was the light. And he took it into the dealer, and the dealer quoted him over $4,500 for a new hybrid battery. He took it home, took all the terminal connections off the batteries, soaked them in baking soda, hit them with a toothbrush, dried them off, put them all back on, and the car worked fine. And this is the center of the whole issue on right to repair and right to modify your car and who owns your car. If you can get the deep tribal knowledge necessary to deal with the automobiles, they can be very, very useful and for a very long time. It would not surprise me to see Nissan Leafs with 250,000 miles on these batteries. I don't care. Are they going to have 80 or 85% of the original mileage? You know, this is another dirty little secret. Everyone keeps on and on about this range. The average American drive per day is still under 40 miles. Mark Weisheimer's wife has a 4-mile commute, which, by the way, is 3 times the commute my wife has. And, of course, I live 450 yards from the shop. And so electric cars whose batteries still work but are down to 50 or 55 miles or 45 miles on a charge would be very useful to me. And, of course, we know how to augment the batteries, replace the batteries even if necessary, and can work all that out. But this depreciation issue is long feared. I have mentioned it numerous times on EVTV. It's not like it should catch you by surprise, except that it is. It's even catching me by surprise. It's so sudden and so dramatic. It's kind of a horror. Except kind of a happy horror, because we're all scrambling to buy stuff and with both hands. And it's literally all of us are grabbing Leafs primarily, but also Azure Dynamics. And I think the same thing's going to come around for the Chevy Volt. Our own Colin Kidder is working on one of my favorite cars. You're not going to be able to tell it from this video because they've got it all wrapped up in paper. But this is a gorgeous, I think, 58 Mercedes Benze SL190. Colin, who now works for EVTV part-time, but also still works for the family business K&G Manufacturing. And what they actually do is stamped metal pieces for renovating, rebuilding classic Mercedes-Benz cars. And they've had a commission to make this car electric. Did it once, and the guys brought it back and wants it done again with more modern stuff. So Colin's put one of our UQM from the Coda thing. Actually a new UQM from UQM, but the Coda variant that we carry in this Mercedes SL190, and it's already turning out pretty well. Let's take a look.
It's been a while, a couple weeks, since we've filmed, maybe even close to a month since I've filmed. Transmission, as we said, we took out the old motor that we pulled. Here's the car up in the air. Finally, this is the positioning. We got about a 1 degree rotation clockwise that'll twist back. It's just kind of setting on a jack and some brackets. It is attached to the drive shaft. Drive shaft had to be pulled, reassembled, everything adjusted so that the slip yokes are all in the correct position. When we did all that, put everything, the motor had to go back another inch, which meant we had to cut out some more of the tunnel. Colin has been working on a battery management system, new battery cables. All the jumper cables had to be upgraded. The new motor pulls more amperage, and we could not leave the thinner cabling. So all of these cables that link every single battery had to be made new. And there's 200 batteries, but we have them in packs of 2, so we had to make close to 100 of these to link the battery packs together. Now he's doing a battery management system that's going to sense the charge of the batteries, but in larger packs, so it's not quite as complicated, I guess you will, as the other one. He has this back together back here. I don't know if he did the last time we filmed it, but I do know he wasn't working on the battery management system. He's got some components he's put in here, soldering. He's also working on a new wiring harness and fuse box that we took out of an S10 pickup truck. That'll be wired in so that we have fuses that can be labeled for each individual item. Not sure much light we have inside of here, so I will flip on a little extra lighting. You can see that there's water tubes because this is a water cooled. We had to cut out sections of the tunnel. The motor had to come back towards me another inch, so I had to trim out right here farther, up around the water tube farther. Same thing on the other side. Walk over there and get a shot of that. They had to be cut away as well. A lot of things that you don't think about have to be accommodated. We're probably not going to use this existing gas pedal, so it doesn't really matter, but we had to cut away this side a little bit farther. You can see how close the motor still is in some of these spots. It's not rubbing, and there's a good finger distance between the motor. I might trim just a touch more, up in that upper corner right there, upper right corner. Square that off a little bit. But he's done a lot of work on batteries and wiring and what have you. But at this point, we're going to use the existing motor mounts that are here. You can see I've got aluminum brackets coming down. You want to hold that a minute? I'll jump in and get a shot of. This is going to sit on here right now. It's not going in there very well because everything's tight, but that will sit on there. Then this will weld over here. This bolt has to be lowered down, drop it on, then brought back up through. The bolt's a bit longer than it needs to be. That'll be mounted here. And we have this one that's going on the other side, actually like that. That'll be mounted there. We had to have clearance for the emergency brake lever, and the cable goes right along the side of the motor. We had to miss the cable of the motor, so the motor is actually setting in here off center to the right side, approximately ½ an inch, with the tail coming back and centering on the drive shaft. So drive shaft is off center about 3/8, maybe quarter. If it causes a vibration, which we don't anticipate it will, but if it causes a problem, we'll go back and we'll notch things like this out for the emergency brake lever. Put another pulley arrangement to pull the cable away from the side of the motor, because otherwise it'll rub on it. Stuff like that. But we're going to try this first because it's easier, less expensive, and if it works, all the better. So these holes and cutouts are for the fuse box and other things. Oh, he's also got an emergency disconnect here that he's wiring up. I don't know where the disconnect handle part
The
is.
disconnect is way over on a shelf.
During hopefully not happening, but a collision, rescuers can grab a handle here and jerk this out, and it will disconnect the battery power
Yeah, it's
from the entire vehicle, so that
it's that.
this unit here will be in here. They can, I'm assuming,
That nice cracked handle, but
grab this handle, pull it up, and jerk it out, right? And being that this is the color, and there's more and more electric vehicles around, the rescuers will know to pull this.
well, even
This
if
will
they
go down inside of there.
even if they don't,
You got a fuse as well,
somewhere
right?
over here, there's an emergency throw switch, fuel tank
Fuel tank
a fuel
shutoff,
shutoff.
electrical shutoff.
switch. Yeah, it's over here somewhere.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I don't know where. Oh, this AC Delco part. What we're really counting on in a crash would be this fuel shutoff valve. You get in a collision, ball pops out in there and it'll drop the contactor out. Okay, resettable on top.
All right, so anyway, you can see we've got a lot of things going on with this car. Some more batteries that have to go in. The controller, which is water cooled, is over here. Once the motor is properly mounted, this will go down inside. We'll make a cradle so that this sets, and then the water lines will intersect from here down to the motor and then back up. Of course, the radiator and all that other goodies has to go in here too. But we're coming along well with the motor mounting. I would say another 3-4 hours, somewhere in that ballpark worth of work. The motor mounts will be in the front and underneath the body. I'm building a bracket that's going to come off the existing studs on the motor, hang down probably like this, and a motor mount. Actually, this is going to go up like that with a motor mount underneath of it like this, and then there's a cross bar that goes under this motor mount all the way across, that it bolts to, that goes across the ears on the tunnel. So this will be the support for the back of the motor. We were going to try and use the original one, but it just isn't wide enough. It just isn't going to do it. So I need a 9.5-inch bar that's going to go across. We'll be building that in the next few hours and start assembling. We're going to drill and tap the crossbar with all the bolts in it in 2 locations, and then we're going to slot the vertical aluminum bars so we have adjustment, so the motor can be rotated slightly, lifted or lowered as we deem necessary. So we'll get that all installed and then get some more shots. Probably in the next week or so, if we get everything in there and put together, we may be able, not everything will be in, we may be able to actually spin the motor and see the wheels turn, but it won't be assembled, water cooled and all that won't be done. We won't be running anything hard enough to get hot. If that's the goal, hopefully in the next week or so we'll do it. It is first week of May 2015, and so we will get back as soon as we get a little more progress.
Say you're going to have a whole lot of extra.
We cut our adjusting brackets. We want some adjustment. We're going to have 2 10mm bolts about this far apart, so we can go up and down about 1/2 inch. We just threw it in the mill. Colin wrote a quick program. This is a special, what's called a high helix cutter for aluminum. We've written, like I said, written a program to go through and cut these nice slots in there. And we're, you can go ahead and shut the unit down. I know, it sounds like bearings are falling apart, but it's always done that. And then we'll take it out of here, back to the car. We got to do some welding. We're going to weld that bottom plate that we built onto the bottoms here with that hole drilled in it. We're going to clamp everything together here first. But this is the winding down on the pieces that we need to put that motor back together, or put the motor in the car actually. This is a few hours later. Wrote a program on the mill and we cut, I think we showed this already, cut slots. Had to elongate them just a little bit farther once we got everything situated. Turned this up, it needs to be tightened, but turn that up so the water tube's coming up. Welded the footies on here, nuts are not tight yet, just the weight of it setting on there at this point. Got them welded. Decided to notch out for the emergency brake so we could slide everything over more evenly in the middle of the car. The emergency brake cable barely misses the back corner of the motor, so not going to be an issue. Routed the wires on the front side so they can go up to the controller. Cut out a little bit more of the firewall sides inside. I think we showed that already. Everything's fitting. The drive shaft is completely bolted up. So when the motor spins, the rear axle is going to spin. So everything's lined up. I am building the rear motor mount housing. And just quite simply, it's going to be a bracket mounted to the front studs on the motor, coming out like that. And there will be a motor mount right here. Actually, under here. The bolt coming down through. And then there'll be a cross member coming across under the motor mount from ear to ear on the back of the frame there, where the old bell housing, near where the old bell housing used to be. We'll get shots of that. It's late Friday, a little after 5 o'clock. I got to go excavation and stuff on a new yard for my daughter who just bought a house, and we'll get this popped in here hopefully Monday. It's coming along real well, and that is the position and the location of the motor. Old one used to set in here. We feel with the controller going to be able to sit in front of the motor and fairly low, water cooled as well. That we're going to have room to put in some more batteries along the sides and around the front here. Increase the battery capacity a little bit. Give them a little bit more power, because we'll probably bring the voltage up closer to 400 volts from the 360 that it's at now. And it'll give him a little more power, a little more amperage, and should give him, depending on how they drive it, a little more distance. So we'll get some more shots when we get a little more progress. We're building a mounting plate. These slots are going to fit studs on the electric motor. With a 3/8 cutter, we have to go about 25 or 30 thousandths each way to ensure that a 10mm stud will properly go in there. It's probably a little shaky. Now we'll pop this out, put 2 holes on the other side for the mount, and then I'll build a cross brace to support that underneath. we'll crawl under the car and get some shots. But this is just a small mill here that we're slotting this, and I'll get the other 2 holes and we'll go try it out. Okay, another day has gone by. You can see that the brackets are built. This front frame rail is angled. We drilled and tapped a hole here. 2 holes for attachment. This is tapped so we can screw this down and hit the frame and level the piece of bar stock off. Same thing over here. 2 holes for attaching. This is a leveling. We just got in our rubber buffers today. They're about 1 1/8 inches tall. This is mounted in rubber now. That gives us ample clearance over the gearbox. I also was able to find some offset fittings. They're not in here tight yet, but this allows me to rotate the water line. We just temporarily have these batteries setting here approximately where they're going to be. And obviously the water tube coming out was straight at the battery, and we need to put the batteries here, so we had to offset. So a little bit of driving around, but I was able to find the right fittings. These batteries will be mounted over here like that, and they're lower than they're going to be because I don't have brackets made yet. But we should be able to go right between these 2 batteries, and I can probably even angle this down. We're going to come right out of here and go right into that motor. I believe that's the outlet to the motor, so it's going to come right up. Wait a minute. That's the inlet to the motor, so it's going to come right out of here and right down to the inlet to the motor. The outlet to the motor will come back around and go right to the radiator. So we're coming along very well. I'm going to start building brackets for the batteries. Kind of lay them out in here. I'll build a bracket for the radiator. I'm kind of ready to mount that so we can keep everything away from it. Colin's going to look into where we can mount. We're going to change the water pump to a higher capacity water pump. This system demands a little bit more water circulation than our other one we had in the other motor. So we have a much heavier duty water pump with larger fittings, and this will actually circulate 2 to 3 gallons a minute. Didn't you say it needed about a half?
I think it wants
half a gallon a minute.
7 liters a minute, and this is capable.
So a gallon and a half a minute.
11 or 12 liters a minute.
Yeah. So this is plenty good enough. And then so probably we're going to mount this in this air intake duct area. We're not going to be using the air intake duct anyway. I can actually mount it just outside of it if I wish to, depending on the outlet and inlet to the radiator. So we're going to plan for that. Before we get too many batteries in here, we got to put other things in here that we know have to be mounted. We know we can get 4 batteries back here, possibly 6. The hood is higher than this DC to DC converter. And so even though these batteries are going to come up about 1.5 inches higher than they are now, I think we can stack them 3 high and get 6 batteries right here. We need 10 totally, so if we can get 6 there, we can put 2 or 3 here. We know we can get 2 over here, if not 3. If Harry decides to go with a few extra batteries, we can stack them here, here, and there's a location to mount some batteries on their sides right over the top of this, probably even this high. So we could put at least 4 more to 6 more batteries here if he chose to do that. So we're trying to leave some space. We still want to be able to work on this. We still want to be able to get to some things. So once we get this testing, once we get the motor, everything set to pretty much where we want it to be, we're thinking about coming back in here and tack welding this aluminum area right here and on the other side, just maybe a 1/2 inch down, so that when it's fixed to where we want it to be, if everything's working well, we don't want the torque of the motor to work bolts loose. So we're going to probably tack those too, but not at this point. So we'll get some more shots. Actually, I promised Harry to get him off a video where we are at this point. I think you haven't done any more work back here in the last 2 days, have you?
Kind of. There's a battery management system
You got the battery management system?
kind of hanging out here right now.
And you tested it and it works?
It does work, yeah.
Okay.
Some of that.
You cleaned up back here, painted up the
Clean that up.
the mesh, and you're
Put it
kind of
down.
getting ready to reinstall the cover.
Yeah. I don't know where someone put the charger, but eventually that has to be mounted. There's holes in this for the
Charger sets here. Okay. So anyway, we're there. Colin, he's got seat belts or shoulder harnesses in here for a different style seat that he had.
Yeah.
We're probably not going back with that, so let's remove those. I don't want them flopping around here with metal buckles near those batteries.
Yeah, they are.
So they have to go bye-bye. So whatever they're screwed in with, let's get them out. Okay. So there we are as of today. It is May 12th, I believe. 14th? May 14th. And we will we'll get this video off so you can kind of see where we are. This is where these wires will attach. And when we get the batteries in, the battery wires will come around and come in here and power this unit. So, and we're going to be, like I said, assembling things today. Next couple of days, there should be batteries in here, the radiator, and we got the reservoir for the radiator too. We got to mount all that before I start putting batteries in. Any more batteries? Okay. We'll get some more shots as soon as we get a little more work done. Today is what? 15th?
15.
All right, we have an auxiliary battery pack here. We decided that before we install all the rest of the batteries, it was probably a good idea to test the system, see if the car has any vibrations or the drive shaft flies out through the roof or whatever, you know. We're not going to run this long, but we want to spin the motor up and bring the car up to a reasonable speed, check for vibrations in the motor and how things are mounted and that kind of stuff. We're not going to get anything too hot or too nasty. My son's got everything set up here. We have a Ford, I think it's an Explorer gas pedal. We have a 23, 24 kilowatt
23 kilowatt pack.
battery pack, which is comparable to all of the batteries in this car had they been put in. So it's a very comparable battery pack. And then we're going to go ahead and start spinning this up. Just take it easy, slowly for now.
We're going to be in the regen range for a minute, so I got to kind of figure out where the pedal starts.
Okay, tires are spinning. I'll put my hand on it here and get a feel for. Feels pretty good so far. We have no way. Can you tell me how many RPMs we're traveling?
Do I have?
You don't have the RPM set up, or you're not on that screen? That'll tell me, because we're direct drive to the shaft, that'll tell me the actual speed the car would be going down the road, so we can kind of get a feel for, you know, what we would be doing, what would we be doing down the road.
Got to go look that up.
Well, you were spinning
Spinning quite quick.
my guess, you were spinning at a speed of about 60 miles an hour. And your motor wasn't anywhere near capacity. So I would say you were in the between 45 and 60 mile an hour range. Do you have a way of telling the RPMs?
I don't right at the moment.
All right, we'll spin it up again. Let me just feel it and listen to it. But then I'm going to want you to hook up some kind of an RPM.
You can see that you can see
Capability.
if the regen works because as soon as I let go, it locks.
Go ahead and
the
try
tires
it.
right up.
about 60 miles an hour now. How far on the pedal are you?
Trying to hold it fairly steady. I'm not hardly pushing the pedal.
All right, you're probably doing 60 miles an hour. Give me a little more.
It's vibrating, but not terrible.
No, I don't feel any bad vibrations. Give me some more speed.
Vibrate that much in the gas motor.
Yeah, give me some more speed. Oh, I'm liking this. Look at my fingers in the air.
If you have your hand on the fender, you can feel it vibrating. It's not a lot.
Oh no, it's not shaking or anything. You are smoking. You're exceeding 100 miles an hour right now, I guarantee you. They are smoking along. Give me a hair more and then back it off. Let it up and let it stop. Is it on regen?
Regenning it.
Oh, regen works fantastic.
Was that reverse?
That was forward.
Speedometer didn't say anything.
Speedometer's not hooked up.
Nothing's hooked up. We're just hooked
Holy
directly.
mackerel, that thing's smoking along. Now, I don't want to overheat the motor.
Yeah, we shouldn't probably.
I don't want to
that
overheat
for very
anything.
long.
See if there's any warmth coming to anything. There's no load on it,
There's really nothing.
so it shouldn't get.
It shouldn't get.
It
too
shouldn't
hot.
even get. It should barely get warm. The motor isn't even getting warm.
But you can't do that for very long.
No.
This is warm right here. Just this.
I want you to let it cool a minute. I'm gonna guess you had the wheels spinning in excess of 100 miles an hour.
Sounded pretty fast.
It sounded pretty good.
It was smoking. I need you to hook up a way to tell me the RPMs so that we can do this again and let Harry know what RPM wise. I think you had the equivalent here. I think you had the equivalent of about 110 miles an hour or more is my guess, because those tires were really smoking.
What?
What were you at for this?
It doesn't say.
How much? It doesn't tell you how much the motor was spinning around.
No, the
Give
data
me-
is on there, but I wasn't.
Give me about
I don't have any.
Give me about a third to half throttle, like right away. Just jam it down about halfway. All right. That's 100 miles an hour easily.
That I have the limiting. If it's listening to the limits, I have the limit set to 5,000 RPM, which is well over 100 miles an hour at the tires.
Put it down. You can't tell how many RPMs you're getting. I watched the rear end settle about a half an inch moving on your jack stand, so I want to check that.
I don't like that.
That should have been 5,000 RPM. It should have hit me
So
up.
you've got it limited at 5,000?
Yeah.
You're still on here, okay?
So that's what it looks like. when
It
you hit
just
5,000.
vibrated down into the base of the
Well-
jack stand.
The tires are on a 4-to-1 differential, so that's about 1,000 RPMs at the tires,
All right.
Yeah, either way,
or 1,200.
that wouldn't be good if it dropped.
You can't help it, the gas pedal's here.
Touch the pedal a little bit if you want regen. If it,
All right, that was
Nice,
five.
free
That
wheel
was
on top.
5,000 RPMs. That is, I believe, 110 miles an hour. Because you have it set for 5,000.
Yeah.
What's the motor capable of?
More like 7,000, 8,000.
So the car is capable of 135 miles an hour.
You could. It'd probably not.
No,
be that.
no, no.
That's just idea on the highway.
Harry wants it set for around 90. So if you do the 5,000,
We've got a governor.
he'll get around 100 miles an hour, 110. I think we'll call that good. I'm satisfied that this thing is balanced Steve, put your hand.
No, it feels
No,
really good.
put your hand on the motor
You can
itself.
touch it.
Put your hand. That's the bell housing.
The bell housing.
Put your hand on the motor.
It's getting just a hair warm.
Pretty darn smooth, isn't
You
it?
can see my thumb. That's what the vibration would be. There's nothing really. And it's mounted into rubber, so the car has even less.
Yeah. No, I mean
There's nothing.
there's no vibration. I got you in 3 motor mounts.
That's what
I watched it rock, very minimal,
Well, engines rock too.
right? But there's no torque because there's no wheels friction on the ground.
Nice.
So I'm satisfied that we're going to be fine. I'm going to start putting. I decided we're going to send this video to Harry, but I decided to go back to the original radiator that we had mounts made for. It has about 2/3 the capacity of the big radiator, but you already paid for this one. So if this will do the trick, we're going to stick with this radiator. It has its own fan built in with a temperature sensor, so we're going to just use this. And we're going to go ahead and put your batteries in here now. And everything's mounted nicely. We got good clearance over top of things here. Everything's fitting nicely, looking good, mounted properly. I put new fittings in here, bringing us up to 3/4 inch water line, so we'll get good circulation. We decided to use your existing tank. I sanded it, cleaned it all out, flushed it. Put a 3/4 inch fitting in the bottom. We're going to use that just as a reservoir, not as a flow-through tank. So it's just going to be what we would call an overflow. As the liquid gets warm, it'll back up inside of there. And then as you need some liquid, it'll draw it back out. So that's what we're going to use that for. We're going to put the batteries in now, get everything wired up. We'll test it back here with it up on stands again with your existing batteries. And then we're going to take it out, probably with still the paper hanging on it and all. We'll take it up and down our private road here and see what we can do. I believe if you don't have a plate on it, and we will put our, nope, you still have your plate on it. We will put our plate on there if that one's not current and take it a mile around our road. They'll think it's a new GM or Ford product because it has the paper all over the outside and we're trying to hide something from people. But no, I'm real encouraged. This thing, that motor just sounded fantastic. Are you done? It won't work now, or what work?
I already turned it off.
Okay. So, good. No vibrations. Sounds smooth as can be. That means the drive shaft alignment and everything we did appears to be really, really nice and accurate. I'm real encouraged. So we'll get this off to Harry and his son so I can see the progress here. And within the next week, we should be able to get the batteries and the mounts all made.
Meanwhile, Peter Casiato, the electric bus company in Toronto, Ontario, operates a service with an electric Volkswagen bus and knows some about electric cars. And so he has taken on the task of fixing a 1958 Chevy Apache pickup we've been aware of for several years. It's the Steamwhistle beer truck. Let's take a look at this.
Alrighty, so here she is in all her glory. 1958 Chevrolet Apache, painted in this wonderful green, with some pretty awesome hand painted stencil work for our friends at Steamwhistle and Bullfrog Electricity, one of their green electricity providers here in the province of Ontario. Now this vehicle was built in Vancouver, British Columbia about 4 to 5 years ago, using some pretty decent components. Our favorite, a D-Mach 645. This one obviously looks to be air cooled. There are 96 Thunder Sky SE 160 amp hour cells for a total of about 50 kilowatts of storage on board, which is pretty potent for this pretty big beast. As we notice, there are some battery mismanagement boards on the cells, which we will be removing, making this car less of a fire hazard. And I say battery mismanagement because if it worked, it wouldn't have killed 2 cells. You got 2 cells that are reading currently 0. As far as the drivability of the vehicle is, kind of quirky. It has got this new to me selector switch that obviously came from Azure, and we're hoping to delete this all with a JevQ and get this thing reliable, because it sure looks pretty, you know. The goal is to kind of match its looks with some performance and reliability, have this thing be able to cruise around the city and to outside suburbs and outside cities to do some promotional events for the brewery. It looks super cool. We're going to make it drive super cool, and we're going to see how far we can go. I'm hoping for about 120 miles. I'm really gunning for a 200 kilometer range with this thing. I think she'll do it, but we'll have to put her on scales, see how much she weighs. But continue to join me, huh? I'll do my best keeping some video footage alive and sharing with everyone, at least the ones who want to watch. Thanks.
How cool does it get? And notice again, and I cannot express, we no longer talk about it a whole lot anymore. Occasionally I do get a call, somebody still wants to have this battle. We have had so many people come to us with broken cars, with 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6 cells gone bad, replete with the most god-awful battery management systems akimbo in all directions. Wait a minute, I thought those were supposed to save the batteries. I've got batteries that are on their 3rd car, but these guys cannot keep a car going with a $2,000 battery management system that is supposed to save their batteries. They bleed them off, they beat them up, and they lose cells left and right. Our viewers just don't do that. And I think the trick is the bottom balancing. If you ever take one too deep, it's gone. And when they line them all up at the top, sooner or later, they tag one. And then they're trying to charge it again and overcharging the other ones, and it goes into a cascade. And I 3 times a week now, we have people bring us photos and videos and telephone calls. How do I fix this? Okay, you were right. Of course I was right. But it's pickup truck week here at EVTV, and this is one of my favorite builds. Rich Morris is an electronic design engineer, ought to be able to do an electric car. Lives in Stoughton, Wisconsin, built his own house with his wife. But he has a company called BB7. BB7 is a design consultancy. They do designs for people. Now, why would somebody do a design for you? I mean, most of you all do your own designs. I have never met a medical doctor who did not have a dream of inventing something, patenting it, and getting free money from royalties and not having to go in and see all these sick people anymore. It's like the universal dream of doctors everywhere, and dentists too, that they'll invent some sort of dental appliance or something, sell it to the other hapless yuck dentists, and then they won't have to be a dentist anymore. They'll become fabulously wealthy on the sale of the devices. BB7.com, actually, that seems to be their main forte. Medical devices, dental devices, scientific devices, and they go to some pains to design them for these people. They're located in Madison, Wisconsin. Rich has what I'm starting to now term an heirloom car, and that is, and we've had a number of them, Algaitas would be kind of an heirloom car. An heirloom car, I'm terming it, is like something that's been in the family for a while. It has nostalgic and spiritual value, not so much for what it is, but where it's been, like through 3 generations of your family, for example. And this has been Rich's pickup since he was a kid. It's a 1960 Studebaker Champ. Again, like Colin, using the UQM Powerphase 100 drivetrain. And these guys have done a fabulous job on the, of course, what I think is the hardest part of the build, the battery boxes. Let's take a look and see what Rich Morris of Stoughton, Wisconsin, has done to his 1960 Studebaker Champ pickup truck.
Well, she got her daddy's car and she cruised to the hamburger stand now. Seems she forgot all about.
Hello out there in EVTV land. My name is Rich Morris, Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm doing an electric vehicle. It's a 1960s Studebaker Champ pickup truck, 3/4 ton, that I've had since 1977. When I took it out of storage the last time, in October, I got it running, drove it to town and back, and it was smoking like crazy, and I thought, it's time to do it upright. For me, upright was to finally get rid of all the cancer and have the body work done. And then as I thought about it, I thought, being an electrical engineer, I really ought to make this electric. So I got on the internets and started looking all around, looking at videos and looking at web postings. The most useful one I found said, tell everybody that you know I'm making an electric vehicle. Because when you find out how much it costs, you're going to want to back out, but because you told everybody, you're going to stick with it. And I found that exactly to be the case. I was hoping it would cost about $5,000. It's probably going to be more like $25,000 or $30,000, but I'm really looking forward to having it, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. I took the truck to work. I work at a product development firm in Madison called BB7, bb7.com. We do all kinds of product development of medical and consumer equipment. Knowing that our industrial designers and our mechanical and electrical and software engineers would have a great time with it, and we really have. You can see a lot of the progress on electricstudebaker.com, where I've been posting for the last couple of months. So I've put here a couple of videos from our last get-together on Friday. We're hoping to have the truck on the road in May. It's getting pretty close, but we're giving out our best.
Battery boxes are in.
So what had to happen to get the battery boxes in?
Well, we had to tune the frame a little bit, take out a little bit of the side rail, weld in some cross pieces here and then here. They pretty much drop in. They'll be held in place by what's represented with the gold bolts right now. They do have a polycarbonate cover that goes over the top, bolts down, and once we get it all wired up, we're going to close her up.
Rear suspension we lowered by 3 inches, and that's mainly to level the truck out because we lowered the front quite a bit. We've added in a 3-inch spacer aluminum block between the axle and the spring, extended the U-bolts, and adjusted the shock mounts accordingly.
We're beefing up the bed pivot point with a little bit beefier piece of angle iron and 2 fasteners here, so we have enough stock to put an actual shoulder bolt that'll work as the hinge pin. We're going to put the truck bed up there now just so we get an idea of how it sets on there, and any tuning that we need to do to box covers or hinge points we should be able to do once we get it up there. So once we get the truck bed up there, I shouldn't have to take it off again. I'll be able to, I'll get the pivot points in there, and then we should be able to lift it manually, and then eventually work on putting the gas shocks to help support it, and then the locking mechanism that's gonna, the latching mechanism that's gonna go up in the front. Hopefully.
Okay.
If all works well.
We know what we're Okay, are we rolling? Ready? Yeah, you gonna do this like you did before?
We can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, don't let it get up the water.
Get it off the wall here.
And yeah, be careful about the sidewalls. It's a
Scoot the board.
dramatic board.
The whole thing away from the wall.
I'm stepping on board.
We're plenty clear of the wall.
Okay.
That's what you're worried about.
though, and over, away from me a little bit. You guys ready to go up?
Yeah, we're half a foot from the wall.
Okay. Let her go. Let her go. I got it. Be careful, Rob.
Oh shit, you guys got it?
Yeah, we got it. I got a good grip now. Okay. I'll get myself in the corner.
Get out from under there. Let's go backward a little bit. I got this side.
Okay.
Hey, Rob, you and I need to.
You got it, Mike?
I don't know if I can go up higher.
You got it, Mike?
Yep.
Kinda.
You up high enough there? Okay.
Hope so. We find it higher. We high enough? Not quite. Oh my gosh. Okay, right now watch pinches.
There's a few seconds there. I didn't think you guys had it very well.
What's the thing? Why are we rubbing on the tire?
We're not forward enough.
Okay, are we between the two brackets there?
Yes.
Right?
So jump it forward
Yeah.
a couple inches?
Okay, hold on. We'll help.
On your fingers.
Yeah, dip my fingers with a shim. That works out.
How close was
That's
this?
about.
Tailgate.
You can always prop it.
Is this a dead one?
I don't know.
So there you go. There's a little bit about what we're doing, and I hope you enjoy it. And I will update you in a few weeks.
Well, golly, Sergeant Carter. That's quite a build coming along there. And, of course, they're overly equipped to do an electric car. They've done this in a matter of weeks, and it's going to be a fabulous build and a good, I think, advertisement for their BB7 design consulting firm. And a nice ride. He's got over 100 180s in that truck. I mean, he can drive it to Cape. With that UQM in there, that thing will be smooth and slick as anything. Let's take a look at me. It's all about me. Show's all about me. I'm the only one left. Everyone's left. And so let's talk about me, and let's talk about the Tesla test bench and where we're going with what I think is going to be one of our big and exciting projects this year on the Tesla drivetrain. Let's take a look. When last we spoke about the Tesla drivetrain, we had it laying on the table here. My good friend and longtime associate, Dr. Charlie Priest, handyman, has taken some angle iron and made us some mounts on the front and the back, and on this end there are 3 points where the Tesla drivetrain mounts, and We've got it tied to the bench here pretty good. And he's added a bracket tying the bench to the wall at each end because it had a little bit of wobble in it. But this is pretty firm at this point. Unlike our good friend Damian McGuire, we like to tie them down good before we put the spurs and quirt to them. And this is very sturdily mounted here now and actually attached to the wall. I also discussed the throttle on the Tesla, which is kind of a consideration since it's hardwired directly into the plug that goes here on the end of the Tesla, into the inverter end. And so our torque commands are going to actually come hardwired from the throttle instead of by CAN, the controller area network. That brings up an issue. I was trying to get a Tesla throttle, and Jeffrey Hines, or Hino, of our hack team, sent me a photograph with the part number of the Tesla throttle on it. I entered it on eBay and was delighted to find that that throttle is actually a very common throttle used on the Ford Focus, the Ford, well, several of the Ford models, but notably the 2012 Focus, and some of the trucks. It's actually a very common Ford drive-by-wire throttle, 6-pin, of course, and so I'm currently chasing down the connector to go on that. I have a pigtail from an auto body company or an auto parts company for this coming, but I think I've also got the connector identified. Charlie has actually mounted me a throttle right here, so it'll be easy to run up and down the motor. And so all of this in preparation for our, I think, June 12th meet of the EVTV hack team. At least a number of the members are going to come in, and I suppose we'll get liquored up, play with some high voltage, and maybe go for a drive. But in between that, my hope is to perhaps interest them in an afternoon of focused effort on the Model S drivetrain. And in preparation for that, I'm trying to get everything they're going to need to actually make it work. The throttle, the connector here, this connector, the encoder connector, maybe some Dexon ATF for the drivetrain. And I've got a couple of axles we can put in here, or stubs, so we don't have the gearbox fly apart if we do turn it. And of course, we still do need to work out the controller area network message IDs that are used on the system. There is some traffic, it looks like, between the BMS and the inverter, probably advising that there is a battery of some voltage and some current. There appears to be traffic that would involve the mode that the inverter will be in, for example, forward or reverse, or park. This seems to have a electric parking pawl in it somehow that locks up the car wheels when you're parked, and in fact it has a neutral. And then there's a range mode and a standard mode for driving the vehicle. And then, of course, you have cruise control. And so there's a number of modal type signals that have to be delivered by CAN. There is a high voltage interlock signal, a brake signal that is hardwired on some models and by CAN on others. And we have to figure that out. And then there's an interlock signal for when you're charging to not be able to drive away. And so it's not actually terribly complicated at the conceptual level, but the Tesla Model S, as it turns out, puts out a lot of control area network messages, a very fast stream of a lot of CAN data. Let's take a look at what we're working on there. Okay, we're going to try to get some CAN data out of the Tesla. It's a little more complicated than you might think. The Tesla does have an OBD2 port on my Model S. It's in the left driver footwell. Not really in the conventional place. It's sort of turned sideways, and it points straight down from the dash panel underneath on the left side. Of course, the Tesla Motor Club guys insist there's nothing on it. It's not true. I think there's 2 buses on mine and 12-volt power, but they're not anything we're interested in. There are actually 6 CAN buses on the Tesla, and we're interested in a bus that's variously referred to as CAN Bus C or CAN Bus 3, depending on the documents you look at. And again, our job is made somewhat easier by the Massachusetts service.teslamotors.com website, which provides excellent circuit diagrams. Unfortunately, the cars vary somewhat in how they do things. There have been a number of design changes, and so we're kind of shooting in the dark at what particular drive system we have, what car it was out of. In any event, we have to get CAN out of it. And the CAN bus that we are after, CAN Bus 3, does not appear on the OBD2 connector. In the center console of the car is a small kind of glove box right by the right knee of the driver, below the 17-inch display. It pops right down. It's only held in place with a couple of spring clips, apparently hinged at the back, and it just pops right down. And there is, you don't even have to get down there and look. You can reach under and you'll immediately find a very nice little wiring harness with a 12-pin connector on it, and that is the diagnostics connector for the Tesla Model S. We have managed to locate the pins for that, the connector and pins that's used for that, and I've ordered some. Here, this little bench has a bunch of books on our different OEM things, which are all have connectors and all have them wired a little bit differently. And here I've got a little tub array of different pins and connectors just for different OEM devices. And I imagine this bench will grow to take over this whole end of the room by the time it's done. But this is a mating connector for the Tesla Model S diagnostics port. And just like I do with our other little controllers for the DC Volt, the Chevy Volt charger, the Chevy Volt Eben Spasha heater, or the Delphi DC to DC converter, or many of our TCCH chargers, we have to make a little CAN device to connect to it using a little harness. The main difference from one to the next is a little harness connecting the device to our CANDUI CAN kit. And that's been a kind of a popular seller. We're about to do a major upgrade to that with, it'll have 2 CAN ports and a SW CAN port and a port for an NTC thermistor to read temperature. And that's largely to accommodate the Eben Spasha heater, but it has some other nifty features on it that I like. We're going to get rid of the DB9 connector that we have here, which was so nice to hook up to an OBD2 cable that I never use it. And so here I am wiring up our kit, which is basically an Arduino DUI with our CAN bus shield on it. Now there's actually a lot of, or a number of CAN bus shields out for Arduino. I don't want to disparage anyone, but most of the world's interest in CAN for hobby things with Arduino and some other things have to do really with the OBD2 port and something that's almost separate. It's not really separate, but it's almost. And that is the information that's supposed to be made available on the OBD2 or onboard diagnostics interface for making available trouble codes and engine data for originally for environmental use. This was part of the process for the EPA exhaust testing. Was they had a device they would hook up to the OBD2. They got some standardized information that all manufacturers had to provide out that port, and then that was one of the inputs to, of course, the other was the exhaust sensor at the back of the car. And so they can make automated equipment to test the emissions of any vehicle. Today, on eBay and a lot of places, there are dozens of devices, very inexpensive, most of them based on the Elm 327 chip. Some of them Bluetooth, some of them Wi-Fi, some of them you plug into USB that plug into the USB port. Those are not really CAN adapters. Sometimes they are referred to as CAN adapters, but they're not. They're really PID adapters. And these trouble codes and this engine data is typically made available by the engine control unit or vehicle control unit, where your device that you plug in, you send a data request in a specific format to the ECU, and it responds then with data that you've requested. It could be trouble codes, it could be engine speed, it could be inlet temperature, it could be the amount of fuel in the tanks or the fuel flow rate. There's actually a standardized list of PIDs that all the auto manufacturers follow. And then there are some optional PIDs and additional PIDs that each manufacturer will have for their car. We're not really interested in piddling around here or having anything to do with PIDs. And the PID traffic is not very intense because you send a request and you get a response, which you'll be looking for and can filter for. We're in a very different situation. We need to collect all the CAN data. We have no interest in querying the ECU for PIDs. We're wanting the normal CAN traffic where the ECU or the VCU sends signals to various components and peripherals on the car and on the CAN bus. As I've said, they have so much of this on the Tesla, they have 6 different CAN buses. And the data rates we're seeing even on one of them is kind of got us aghast. We'll see a CAN message every 3 or 4 10,000ths of a second, which is a pretty high data flow, not for a computer network, but for a CAN network, it's pretty intense. And so the problem you have with an Arduino type capture device is being able to keep up with that data flow. The transceiver chip that you put on a shield is pretty much able to keep up with things. And so if you're filtering for a specific CAN message, almost any CAN shield will do. But if you're doing a raw capture of all the CAN data, it really won't. And you get into kind of bottlenecks with the multiprocessor itself and with the USB port where you're trying to tap that. We've attacked this in a couple of ways. Number one, we use the Arduino DUI, which is a SAM3X ARM Cortex processor that runs at 84 megahertz. The normal Arduino is an Atmel 8-bit processor that runs at 16 megahertz. And so we have a lot more processing power in the DUI. The DUI hasn't really caught on in the Arduino community because it has some oddities. It's a 3.3 volt system, so it doesn't really play nicely with the 5 volt shields. And some other just oddities. It has 2 USB ports. It's just a little bit different. And so a lot of it doesn't have an EEPROM on it, for example. And so a lot of the Arduino enthusiasts have not taken this very well to breast, with the result that you can buy the Arduino DUI on eBay for $20 from, you know, not the original Arduino, but one of the copycats, which work perfectly fine. And the old style Arduino Uno or something costs that much or more. So it's kind of an odd situation. We did a shield for the Arduino DUI with one CAN bus here on this DB9 connector and one on the screw terminals, and also have screw terminals for the 12 volts. So I can run this without a laptop at all. Normally the Arduino gets its power from the USB port from your laptop or computer, or it gets it on a 12 volt input. Well, in a car we have 12 volts, but we're not going to have a laptop hooked up to it most of the time. We hook a laptop up to configure it or read it. And so this is our CAN DUI shield. We've got a little SD card, micro card where we can copy things off, and EEPROM chip to hold our configuration because, as I said, the DUI doesn't have an EEPROM. And what we do with that is put a little pigtail, a USB pigtail on it to go from the very fragile micro USB on the end to a very robust printer style micro B or mini B printer style port in the case here, and that way we can encase all this, shield it from the weather, and still be able to connect with the thing. So our little ports wind up gradually becoming a lot more money tied up in the little pigtail, the enclosure, the USB port, a gland nut on the end for our wiring, and so forth, than we have tied up in the Arduino DUI. And of course our shield is done in much lower numbers too, so it's somewhat expensive. And then what we're working on to try to diminish the cost of some of that is actually an EVTV special version of the DUI that has one CAN bus port on it, a USB, again, the printer mini B port on it, which is a little more robust, and this has 12 volt input. Instead of the barrel jack that kind of can come loose, you run the wires in, and these screw terminals let you clamp them down very well. Otherwise, this is an Arduino DUI, but it does have the CAN transceiver on it, the EEPROM chip, and the screw terminals to connect those, and then a different little micro B that they have on the DUI. They actually break off with any kind of stress on them. I've got this printer B thing here, and it's got two huge mounting pins that solder it to the board where it's very strong and it doesn't break loose. So eventually we'll go to this single board with one CAN bus port But for most of our CAN work, we're still using the dual CAN bus shield, and for some good reasons. The other aspect that differentiates what we're doing, I mean, we're doing a serious CAN adapter that is the equivalent of $1,000 Kvaser professional CAN adapter. And it's, in fact, ours actually performs a little bit better than the Kvaser at this point. And a big part of that is actually our own Colin Kidder is now on staff here at EVTV, at least part-time. He's still working out of Sparta, Michigan, but he does quite a bit of coding for us. But he had come up with a very robust, interrupt-driven library for using the transceivers for the CAN. The SAM3X actually has the controllers for control area network built into the chip, and actually 2 of them. But it doesn't have the transceivers that actually send and receive and do the masks and the filters on the bus itself. So you have to add those chips, and that's what's on our shield. And then that interfaces with the regular Arduino boards don't have that at all in the chip. And so they're just simply don't have the horsepower to do the kind of CAN that we want to do. And so the Uno style boards and shields, you can use those to do what people mostly do with OBD2, which is get your speed and RPM and temperatures, and using this PID, request response function. And you can kind of automate that with the Arduinos. We have very different needs. We need to do a mass capture, and we don't want to drop any frames, because not only is there's some, the primary intelligence is the message ID and the data in the CAN messages, but for some equipment, the sequence that they're sent in and the timing that they're sent in is very important. And so our software that we use to capture things using the CANDUI shield timestamps everything actually to microseconds instead of milliseconds internally. But a big part of the success of this device has been Colin's CANDUI or DUI CAN library for Arduino. And of course that's open source and readily available, but it lets you very artfully set up code segments that only execute on receipt of a message, and you can filter the messages. But you can also choose not to filter the messages and still go execute this code whenever a message is received, and that makes a very efficient loop at 84 megahertz to capture the data. Even we struggle a bit on getting that data out the USB port. And as I said, there's 2 USB ports, the one that we're using on our EVTV DUI and the one that we always do use on the CANDUI is the native port. That's tied directly to some pins to an internal USB port in the SAM3X multi-controller. And it's quite fast. The other one goes through an external chip, and it's, as Colin says, slow and evil. Don't use. And so I don't. So that's what I'm putting together here is a little device to work with that and plug into the Tesla Model S, a diagnostics port, and capture kind of a huge-ish stream of CAN data that's going to take quite a bit of analysis to determine just what that is and how it works. And so that's what we're doing. I will mention, I just got them. I haven't tested them, but I have it on pretty good authority. They're very nice. And I'll put up on the screen the guy's name and contact information. Nice little device called the thte, and it has CAN built into it and a nice processor, not a SAM3X, but a nice 32-bit microprocessor. But it's on a very tiny board. The problem I have with it is it uses 5 volts. It doesn't have a 5-volt regulator on it that drops the 12 volt to 5 volt. And it has little holes you can solder wires to along the sides. It's meant to be very small and be incorporated into projects. And we may try to find, a way to do that, maybe to do a controller that's much reduced in size and cost. But right now, most of my costs are in augmenting the interface to the board, the USB port, the harness, the enclosure, that sort of thing is where I'm struggling. And the thte is actually going to make that worse, not better. But Colin says it has a fantastic USB stack, which we're talking about getting that submitted back to Arduino to incorporate in the Arduino IDE because it's so good. And so this is a very nice device. It's very inexpensive. I think I paid $39.95 each for 3 of them. And they're a beautiful design for miniaturization. But for our purposes, that's actually going the wrong direction. We need things we can deal with in the real world and that aren't delicate. The problem we have over and over here is we love the Arduino C++ environment and the abilities of the chips, but the boards themselves are kind of delicate, and any over voltage on an input pin and they're destroyed instantly, and that sort of thing. So we have to couple it with so much DC to DC converters and interfaces and weather protection and vibration protection that it winds up, I'm not sure what the gain was starting with Arduino. And in fact, increasingly, Paulo simply does his circuit board using similar chips, and we go on from there. So, yeah, you can use a Arduino Uno or something in one of the shields out there. We're more expensive, but we're not that much more expensive, and there's a reason. Most of those devices are not going to fill the bill if you're doing serious reverse engineering work on a car. So this is the device we're going to use. Let's go hook it up to the laptop. Colin's done another piece of software and just now ported it to the Mac OS X where I can play with it, and we're going to use that to do some capture and analysis of the Tesla Model S drivetrain CAN bus, which is CAN bus 3. On pins 1 and 6 of the connector, and I've tied pin 9 in here too. One other aspect that we're kind of keen on is isolating the bus from the Arduino. If I sit down with a car and a laptop and this, I've got a lot of different ground references, and there can be kind of huge voltages separating them. By tying pin 9, which is ground on the Tesla, to my return reference here, I level all that out. Now I said we use an isolated transceiver. That's true, but then it gets kind of icky. We're reading this through the USB port, and potentially powering the laptop through the wall. Now, this is another tip. I've lost some laptops this way. This would, our early work with the Makina, it would actually drive it crazy. That basically grounds the car through your laptop to the wall, and it's yeah, there's a little transformer in there, but it still sets up some very strange effects. And we've had numerous occasions with a laptop. For example, sometimes you can't move the cursor around when it's plugged in, but if it's unplugged and you're working on the battery, you can. And this sort of thing that we've experienced because of the different ground references in the car, in the wall, and in the laptop, and in this case in our Arduino. And so this is the device we're going to plug in and plug into the laptop. And Colin has a new program called SavvyCAN that we're quite enthusiastic about. Let's take a look at what we're doing there. Okay, the first thing we're going to do, the program Colin's done is in a development system called QT that works on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS X. We differ rather violently on operating system. He is a Windows person, and I like Mac OS X, which he doesn't do anything fruit-like. So this QT has kind of worked it out for us. But the basic concept is we have kind of a capture and analysis program that runs on a laptop, and it talks over a USB cord to our little box we were building, which runs a program called Generalized Vehicle Reverse Engineering Tool, GEVRET. And GEVRET does the CAN capture and puts the data out the USB port to the laptop where the program he calls SavvyCAN resides. So our first thing we need to do is to compile and upload GEVRET to our little box. And we bring up Arduino, and let me see if I can find our GEVRET program. And here it is. And I'm going to open that. And that's our software. And then in our tools menu, I want to make sure that we have a board selected. And in this case, Arduino DUI, and recall we're connected to the native USB port. That's the fast one. And then we're going to go to port and look for something like a CU or TTY. I've got USB modem 1421 Arduino DUI native USB port. I'm going to select that. I've got our software loaded. This would compile it. This compiles and uploads it with the right arrow. So I'm going to click that, and that should compile and load to the little box we just made that has the Tesla connector and the CAN DUI 2 in it. And it compiles and it uploads. Here I can kind of and I get a CPU reset, meaning that it's working. And I can go up here to serial monitor, and I get a screen, and there it's already doing some data. Let's go hook it up to our Tesla diagnostics connector. And we pull down the little door, pull out the diagnostics connector, and plug that in to our GEVRET. So we're going to close Arduino. We don't need that anymore. And I'm going to bring up the SavvyCAN program. And here it is. And over here on the right, it has serial port. I'm going to select again USB modem 1421. That's the port that my thing is on. And I'm going to say connect to JevRat. And we're not only connected, but we're doing data. This is CAN data. On the left, I've got a timestamp, and that is, I've got a frame number, and then I've got a timestamp, and then I've got the message ID. I've got a column that indicates whether it's extended addressing or not. We're not. We're using 11-bit addresses, apparently. The bus it's on, that's CAN 1. The length, and most of these will be 8 bytes, but not all. And then here are the data bytes. Now this is the first 14 frames that showed up here, but I can turn on auto scroll. I've already captured, getting a phone call in my laptop, I've already captured 38,000 frames. And I can put on an auto scroll, and it'll show them scrolling up here. And I can also turn that off and examine, scroll through here, and examine any particular frame I want. There are a couple of and by the way, I'm continuing to capture. You can see over here the number of frames. I'm at 60,000 and climbing. That's what I mean. That Tesla puts out a tremendous amount of data. We're just sitting here. I do have the door open. It's alive, but we're not driving or anything. Now, I can go, I've actually got some tools here. A lot of them work with files, not the live data I have in here, but I do have a few. One of my favorites is FlowView. And again, this is working on what's captured so far. And so here's all the messages. My goodness. Here's all the messages that I've received on this CAN bus. There's actually quite a number of them. Let's just pick one here. This is message ID 049C. And so far I've gotten 1,585 of those messages. And I'm going to play that. And it kind of scrolls across here. It's actually only got data most of the time in, this is a little graph I like. It has the individual bytes 0 through 7, which elsewhere he calls 1 through 8. We have to standardize on that. And then these are the individual bits 0 through 7. And so you really have a 64-bit matrix, which is the maximum payload for CAN, is 8 bytes, and they're each 8 bits. And they're typically numbered 0 through 7. And so I can pick 40E here, and we'll play that back and see what it's doing. Or I can go down here to 52C, and let's play that. And it just has 2 bits in byte 6, and that's all that it really does. This one I've only got 23 frames. But there they are. And they kind of have quite a bit of data in them. And so we can kind of analyze our different message things and get a brief look at what they look like this way, and kind of graphically see data moving around. There's another tool I like, which is frame data analysis. This one isn't quite so dramatic, but it's actually quite useful. I can pick a message here. Here's 232, and break it apart. I can see that so far I've captured 2,659 frames. They have 4 bytes. Byte 0 ranges from 10 to 10. That means that it's always 10. It's been 10 for 2,659 bytes. Byte 1 is range 39 to 39. It's always been the same. Here, byte 2 is 201 to 203. Then I can look at the histogram. 2,459 of those have been 201, and 200 of them have been 203. Data byte 3 is a constant 128. And so you can easily locate data and determine that it hasn't changed very much or that it's changed quite a bit. Here we've gotten 3,376 of these O2C8s. That's constant at 109, that's constant at 128, constant at 3, 126, 0, and so forth. And so there's not much changing. All right, here's one range 0 to 240. And here's the histogram. They're each 211. We can tell that's a counter. It's counting from 0 to 240 because each of the values have had an equal amount. 0, 16, 32, 48, 64. It's simply cycling. And so this kind of an analysis sort of tells you a lot about a particular payload, and you can go through here and gradually eliminate bytes that aren't doing anything. Of course, this works particularly well when you have a small data set where you do a specific thing. Like I'll get in and put the brake on and put it in reverse and then put it back to park and then cut off the file. And then when I go through, I'll still have a lot of traffic. I mean, some of the stuff's about, other things, the battery management system or so forth. But I'm looking for the changes that have to do with going into reverse, neutral, or park, and maybe the brake. And so that's how I would approach that. So I can turn back, auto scroll back on. We're up to 304,000 frames. Now this is kind of interesting. We can also save this data a number of ways. I'm going to save a log file here, and I'm going to call it the Tesla show log, and I'm going to save that to the desktop. And the kind I want is a JevRet log, a CRTD log, a CSV file, a generic ID data CSV. What CSV is, comma-separated data. And I'll show you why I like that in a second here. And I'm going to leave, SavvyCam running. But if I go over here and find the... let's see if I can find that file. I was going to save that to the desktop, I thought. I don't know where I saved it. Let's go do that again. Save log file. And I want to be on desktop. And let's call it Jack this time. And it's going to be a comma-separated file. And it should come up. I'm not sure what's happening there. We don't appear to be saving the log. Let me take our drive around the circle. Tesla big log here, and I'm just going to click on that to load it. And what that's going to cause is a load and opening, but because it's a comma-separated data file, I don't have Excel on this machine, and so it's going to default to the Apple spreadsheet program called Numbers. And it's going to take it a while to eat this because it's a huge file, but it's going to load that file into that spreadsheet. Now, what can I do there? Well, once it's in the spreadsheet, I can sort based on the message IDs, where I'll have an entire block of just one message ID. And I can graph any one of the bytes and analyze it that way and see how that byte changed over time by the timestamp. And so this is the kind of analysis I like to do. Again, Colin has put several nice tools in SavvyCAN, but I mostly look at CAN data in spreadsheets, and it's because I can sort them different ways and perform math functions on data. Often you're taking 2 bytes and combining it into a single value, and so I can add a column where I'll take those 2 bytes, combine it into a value, divide it by 10 or something, and graph that over time and see that indeed that's the battery voltage or something. And so that works pretty well. Here I am in the spreadsheet, and I'm going to go to Table, and let's see here. Sort and filter options. I get a different box on here. I'm going to add a column, and that's going to be column B. And column B is where we have our messages. And I'm going to say sort the entire table, sort now. And it's going to go to work. And here in column D, or B, we're at the end of the file. Let's go to the beginning. I start out with message 102, and I have, let's see, how many 102s do I get in this big file? Well, a lot. But you get the idea. They're still sorted by the timestamp, but now I'm only getting message 102s because that's the lowest number message in the capture that we did. And so what I can do is copy off 102 and run that out to a maybe another spreadsheet or something to do further analysis. The other thing I can do with 102, for example, is then export that as a text file. And I can import that back into SavvyCAN and then send it out on the CAN bus. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, I wouldn't want to do that on my car, but we might want to send it in the port on the drivetrain that I have mounted on the bench. And in fact, you saw Mark and I do this on the Eberspacher. We might have a dozen or 2 dozen messages we think are involved in the drivetrain, and they occur in the file in a certain order. And we can take those and simply play them back like playing a recording into our connector on the drivetrain, and that will get us a some sort of response. And if it makes the drivetrain turn, then we can start to eliminate messages out of that file until we find one where it doesn't work that way anymore. And then we can put that one back in. But the next one, we might take out and it makes no difference at all. And so eventually we winnow this down to just the cam frames we need to make that drivetrain turn. And then actually once we have it doing that and can measurably turn it or put it in reverse, or we'll start to analyze it, what bits in what messages represent reverse and forward and neutral and park. We apparently have an electric parking pole in our gear drive. When those have to be in place with an accelerator signal or with a brake signal that's hardwired to the drivetrain. And so it's going to be a little bit complicated, but not overly so. This is kind of conveyed in the press as some sort of magic. I want you to think of it more like my wife sits up in bed at night and does Sudoku on her iPhone. People do crossword puzzles, the New York Times crossword puzzle. Mark and Colin and I do CAN messages and CAN data. And it's really more of a puzzle. The hackers at Hackathon and Black Hat and so forth want you to believe that this is some sort of a mystic priesthood of computer geniuses. It is not. It's simply numerics representing values in a car. And in order to control the device that we wish to control, in this case the Tesla drivetrain, we have to capture some live data in a live car. I can take this laptop and the device and go do a drive and come back and do that. Or I can hook it up to a supercharger and record that. And then we take it apart and try to figure out what parts of it are really part of it, and what parts of it are painting the trunk lock on the 17-inch display, and that we don't need it all. And so it's kind of a data analysis, data mining type operation, but a 4-year-old can do this. It's numbers, and it's tedious, and it's not worth the effort often to do a car. But we're on a mission to do components that could go in a lot of cars. And so it becomes a worthwhile endeavor. Once we crack a component, we can then buy, sell, and trade those components. And you, as a vehicle builder or prototyper, university build team, have access to those components and can usefully put them to your use in your project. And so that becomes a little more viable. We're not wanting to change the, I really don't have any interest in changing the performance of the Tesla as I think of them as kid tuners do. They do the little EEPROM chips and so forth for the ECUs to make the engine run hotter or more power or something. We might get to some of that, but I'm trying to think why or what. It's more to be able to determine problems with the car, what's going on, and potentially to repair a car. But immediately our mission is, how do we take the Tesla charger and use it in a Studebaker? Or how do we take the Tesla drivetrain and put it in a DeLorean DMC? And so we have to learn how these devices to work for them to be of any value to us at all. Without that ability to determine how that drivetrain works, there is no market. These drivetrains have no value at all. They're boat anchors. You might be able to use them for that, or landfill. But here's a very expensive device that was a lot of money was spent to develop it, a lot of money was spent to produce it, and it's perfectly good. I have one of them that has 486 miles on it, but somebody wrapped up a tree with a car. And so we want to be able to put those equipments to use and give them a new life and give another car a new life. And there's nothing wrong with that objective. In fact, it's, I think, a fairly noble one. We need to figure out how to make it work. And so the concept of hacking the vehicle to gain control of somebody else's car, I think, is dubious in the beginning. That's certainly something Tesla should be looking at, is that wireless connection to the car, which we don't have a whole lot of interest in. But the data on how the drivetrain works and how these are wired up and what the connector numbers are and so forth, I think that goes to the value of ownership of the car. I bought the car and I should have the right to have that data and to maximize the value of the vehicle. And in our case and for our purposes, we want to be able to take those components and use them. And use them for other things, for unintended purposes. You don't know what the purpose is. We may put a Tesla drivetrain in a snowmobile. We might make a cement mixer out of one of them. I might put it to work in a brewery and make whiskey with it and stir my giant vat of stuff. That's not any of Tesla's business, what I do with the Tesla drivetrain once I've bought the car or bought the drivetrain from somebody else. And if I do wreck the car, then it should have some value in those parts. And that value goes to what people can do with them. And without the data on how they work, they can't do anything. If we don't crack this, or somebody doesn't crack this, a Tesla motor and inverter and gearbox out of a Tesla car is totally worthless and quite heavy and difficult to deal with. And we can turn that around from to being a replacement for drivetrains we sell for $7,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 all the time, and this one is 3 times as powerful. And so, and a very high quality. So it's absurd to let these components go to landfill and so forth, or to repair other Teslas, I suppose would be a good approach. But we want to use them to build other cars, other vehicles, nostalgia vehicles, family heirlooms. The car we always wanted when we were a kid and couldn't afford. Now we can afford it. We buy the car, get a restored one, or restore it ourselves, and convert it to electric drive. And that's what we're about. Colin's doing a marvelous job with his Savvy Can. This is going to be an excellent tool. And between that and the device we use to capture, it makes it easier for us to do this, and it makes it easier for you to do it too if you so desire. It's probably a bridge too far for a lot of people that build electric cars, and that's fine. We'll do it for you. That's the value add where we can get oxygen and have funding to do this kind of work and do this kind of show. It has to come from somewhere ultimately. But a lot of you enjoy the puzzle as well, and you may give up Sudoku entirely, and your wife may too, and you get involved with Arduino and CAN data analysis and join the EVTV hack team. We've got an impressive group of guys. I mean, literally, I just I'm throwing questions out like up into the air. Here's a throttle. And in hours, a guy is sending me a photo of a Tesla throttle with a part number on it. And within minutes of that, I've had one coming here. And within a week, I have 2 or 3 of them on the bench. And so that's, as that body of talented individuals grows and we get more accustomed to working with each other, and it all gets better and starts to accelerate. And that's to enrich the entire community with the ability to do these things and repair and work on cars. There's a whole nother level of this about to break loose, and I'll talk more about that inside. But there's a cornucopia, kind of an unexpected windfall of simply cheap used electric cars coming our way. But they're still a car. Things still go wrong. And after the warranty period and after the manufacturer doesn't want anything to do with you, do you want to pay, like the one guy was going to be charged $4,000 for a new battery pack when he needed to clean the battery terminals with baking soda and wound up with the car working fine? And so maintenance on the vehicles post-warranty is a big deal. If you go to the dealer, their job is to make money. They're like a TV repairman in 1962. There's a lot of not very directly honest trading done there, and they have their ways of doing things that are not necessarily what you want done. So stay with us. This is going to go 4 or 5 different directions as we go, but I want you to be able to see the tools and what we're actually doing here. It's what we do different from saying, gee whiz, electric cars are cool. We think they're cool, our viewers think they're cool, we're a little past that, so stay with us.
I'm tired of fucking Earth Day. I'm tired of
philosophical question. Why are we here?
Plastic. Assholes.
So, the plastic is here. Our job is done. We can be phased out now. And I think that's really started already, don't you? I mean, to be fair, the planet probably sees us as a mild threat, something to be dealt with. And I'm sure the planet will defend itself in the manner of a large organism, like a beehive or an ant colony can muster a defense. I'm sure the planet will think of something. What would you do if you were the planet trying to defend against this pesky, troublesome species? Let's see. What might...
Thank you. You in New York City, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. And take care of somebody else. Thank you. Good night.